Hi, this is TVOMT Magala, Toronto. Today's programs are as follows. I am Lensa Hussein.
Hi, welcome to TVOMT Magala, Toronto. My name is Roberta Nure and here are the headline news. TPLF court convicts Oromo opposition leaders on trumped-up charges. Do they see the anger building up? Commander-in-Chief of the Ethiopian Air Force resigns as tension rises between factions of the army. Ethiopian migrants kidnapped, tortured, raped in Yemen. Government continues to target peaceful Muslim protest movement. Ethiopian Muslims rally on Friday as tension rises. Eritrean immigrants found in lorry full of coffins. TPLF court convicts Oromo opposition leaders on trumped-up charges. Do they see the anger building up? VOA reported on November 1st, 2012, the Oromo prisoners of conscience Bekele, Gerba, and Olbana Lelise were convicted in an Ethiopian court because of their political views. Bekele, Gerba, and Olbana Lelise were thrown into prison after they meet an Amnesty International delegation in August 2011. The AI delegation was immediately thrown out of the country. The unsettling thing for Ethiopia is the fact that these are only two renowned individuals. As a matter of fact, in Ethiopia today, there reportedly are an estimated 20,000 Oromo political prisoners, representing over 90% of the political prisoners in the country. At the time of their arrest, Bekele Gerba was the deputy chairman of the legally recognized opposition Oromo Federalist Democratic Movement, and Olbana Lelise, a leader in the Oromo People's Congress Party, another legally recognized oppositional political party. Amnesty International believes that the prolonged series of arrests and prosecution indicates systematic use of the law and the pretext of counter-terrorism by the Ethiopian government to silence people who criticize or question their actions and policies, especially opposition politicians and the independent media. Whilst these groups have often been arrested and prosecuted in the past, the large numbers of arrests indicates an intensified crackdown on freedom of expression in 2011. Such inhumanity, especially ethnically directed harassment and injustice, ironically, by the very people who raised arms nearly 4 decades ago because they felt that they were treated in this very manner, does not bode well for the country, not even for them, particularly at a time when other Ethiopians are opening their eyes to see who they are. Commander-in-Chief of the Ethiopian Air Force resigns as tension rises between factions of the army. Commander-in-Chief of the Ethiopian Air Force, Major General Molla Hailemariam, has been suspended from his post. The suspension of General Molla is seen as a new sign of tension between several factions of the Ethiopian armed forces. According to Awaramba Time sources, serious disagreement has broken out among Ethiopian army officers since the death of the Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi. Ethiopian migrant kidnapped, tortured, raped in Yemen. Migrants traveling from the Horn of Africa to Yemen in search of a better life are regularly kidnapped, tortured, and raped, according to a new report by the Regional Mixed Migration Secretariat. At least 230,000 migrants have undertaken this hazardous, often lethal journey over the last 6 years, and the rate of migration is increasing dramatically. In the first 8 months of 2012, over 70,000 African migrants entered Yemen, 3/4 of whom were Ethiopian. Kidnapping has become increasingly common in Yemen, with the majority of respondents who arrived in the last 18 months saying that they were held for ransom after disembarking from smugglers' boats, said the report from RMS, working to help migrants in the Horn of Africa and across the Gulf of Aden. On average, migrants and their relatives pay the criminal gangs $100 to $300 to secure their release and prevent further torture, the report said. Common forms of torture by kidnappers include gouging out eyes, pulling out teeth, hammering nails through hands and feet, severe beatings causing multiple fractures, and dripping melted plastic or stubbing out cigarettes onto to the skin, the report said. Women are often separated from men, and it is unclear what happened to them. They set fire to a plastic water bottle, and they put it on my hand, one Ethiopian man captured by gangsters on arrival in Yemen told researchers. After that, they take my wife, and I don't know where she is now. Government continues to target peaceful Muslim protest movement. The Ethiopian authorities are committing human rights violations in response to the ongoing Muslim protest movement in the country. Large numbers of protesters have been arrested, many of whom remain in detention. There are also numerous reports of police using excessive force against peaceful demonstrators. Key figures within the movement have been charged with terrorism offenses. Most of those arrested and charged appear to have been targeted solely because of their participation in a peaceful protest movement. Tens of thousands of Muslims have participated in regular peaceful protests throughout 2012, opposing alleged government interference in Islamic affairs. Protesters accuse the government of attempting to impose the teachings of the Al-Habash sect of Islam on the Muslim community and of interference in elections for the Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs. Ethiopia's constitution prohibits state involvement in religious affairs. The constitution also contains an expansive provision on the right to peacefully protest, which is routinely flouted by the authorities. Since July, when large numbers of arrests took place and incidents occurred at Awaliya and Anwar mosques in Addis Ababa, protests have continued to take place in several regions, including in the towns of Dessie, Jimma, Harar, Shashamini, Adama, Bati, Kamis, and Robe. In addition to the original grievances of the movement, and protesters also demonstrated against the continued detention of members of the committee chosen to represent the Muslim community's grievances to the government. Arrest, arbitrary detention, and harassment of protesters are reported to have taken place in a number of locations. Many of these reports have included allegations of police beating protesters, and the use of tear gas against peaceful demonstration has been alleged in at least 2 locations. Ethiopian Muslims rally on Friday as tension rises. As midday prayers come to an end at the Grand Anwar Mosque in Ethiopia's capital, worshippers continued on to what has become a regular second act on Fridays, shouting anti-government slogans. The demonstration this Friday did not turn violent, but tensions are rising between the government in this mostly Christian country and Muslim worshippers. On Monday, federal prosecutors charged a group of 29 Muslims with terrorism and working to establish an Islamic Republic. Not all encounters between police and the protesters have been peaceful. In July, hundreds were arrested after a scuffle in the mosque that injured many and damaged property, including city buses. Religious violence outside the capital has killed 8 and wounded about a dozen this year in 2 incidents, including one last month when protesters tried to free jailed Muslim leaders in the Amara region. Protests first erupted in December after the state, wary of Islamist extremists, wanted to change the leadership of religious school in the capital. The government also expelled 2 Arabs in May after the pair flew in from Middle East and disseminated pamphlets at the Anwar Mosque. 2/3 of Ethiopians are Christians, the rest are Muslims. Eritrean immigrants found in lorry full of coffins. 3 illegal immigrants from Eritrea have been found hiding in lorry full of coffins in a bid to enter Britain from France, the Home Office said Wednesday. The trio were detained after sniffer dog Mitzi found them hiding in a Bulgarian registered lorry at the port of Dunkirk in northern France on Monday. The vehicle, which was waiting to board a ferry to Britain, was carrying dozens of boxed up coffins heading for a funeral director in Hounslow, West London, the Home Office said. The stowaways were handed over to French border police, and the vehicle was allowed to continue onto its destinations. Paul Morgan, Border Force Director for Southeast and Europe, said, "This was an unusual type of discovery, but in the past we have found people hiding in an array of freight ranging from dog biscuits, bathtubs, and now coffins. The incident shows exactly why we base border force staff in France, to stop would-be illegal immigrants before they can reach the UK." As well as sniffer dogs, the officer also used heartbeat detectors, carbon dioxide probes, and physical searches to find people hiding in vehicles, he added. Thank you for watching TVOMT.
Hamileen ucabsee karaa nun deebisu guyyaa bilisummaa dhiigaa namaan ibsu falmata lakkisu hidhaa fi ajjechaan hamileen ucabsee karaa nun deebisu guyyaa bilisummaa dhiigaa namaan ibsu falmata lakkisu Gabrummaa jalat Oromoon isasu hamma bilisummaa bu'uura siransu qabiitiifanne nuufi ajjeesu lameenuu jiraachu hubatee bobbaaye hubamni hin deebisu Falmanna limona irrenu tayyarab nu mosisi nu wala bomsi irrenu tayyarab nu mosisi nu wala bomsi harkoota gabrummaa boqorraan kuftu qabsaa'utti citee chaphee itti baqee lubbuun to'aa baatu hawwiifi qajeelaan harkoota gabrummaa boqorraan kuftu qabsaa'utti citee chaphee itti baqee lubbuun to'aa baatu Haram bilisummaa ibedali beita takelu punture gama tarkanfata la khumurati mudi jebeifat hidafi ajechan uftulu bukote Falmanna limona irrenu tayyarab nu mosisi nu wala bomsi irrenu tayyarab nu mosisi nu wala bomsi irrenu tayyarab wala bomsi irrenu tayyarab nu mosisi wala bomsi irrenu tayyarab.
Hi, my name is Bultum Omer. This is TVOMT Megala Toronto, and in this week's edition of the Article of the Week, we have an article by Hassan Hussein, titled, "In Autocratic Ethiopia We Are All Bekele Gerba." On November 1st, 2012, Ethiopia's kangaroo court convicted 9 Oromo nationals, including opposition leader Bekele Gerba, who was nabbed on August 27, 2011 after meeting an Amnesty International delegation under that country's sweeping anti-terrorism law. Their sentencing is scheduled to take place in a few weeks. The Oromo term Roro connotes more than its often used English equivalent, injustice. It denotes, in the words of anti-apartheid leader and the greatest statesman of our time, Nelson Mandela, a time in the life of any nation when there remain only 2 choices, submit or fight. Gerba, the vice president of the Oromo Federalist Congress, or the OFC, knew too well that his oppressed nation faced such a trying moment under the rule of Ethiopia's People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, or the EPRDF. The courageous Gerba chose not to submit. He valiantly fought against the violence suffered by the Oromo, not with guns, but through a non-violent means as parliamentarian and as an opposition party leader. Finding Gerba's peaceful actions protected by the constitution treasonous, the EPRDF regime, which considers any form of dissent and Oromo nationalism as a high crime, charged him under its draconian terrorism law. 3 of the defendants, Bekele Gerba, Olbana Lelisa, and Olbana Lummi, asked the presiding judge to speak without a lawyer. Gerba was the first to rise. "In my lifetime, I have opposed injustice, discrimination, ethnic favoritism, and oppression," he told the court. "I am honored to learn that my non-violent struggles and humble sacrifices for the democratic and human rights of the Oromo people, to whom I was born without a wish on my part, but due to the will of the Almighty, have been considered a crime and to be unjustly convicted." The judge interrupted, reprimanding him for not saying anything that would gain him the court's leniency in sentencing. If apology was warranted, Gerba continued, "I would seek it not from the court that found me guilty of a crime I did not commit, but rather from my people as well as the Almighty. For my people, for failing to fully speak to the depth of their suffering in the interest of the coexistence of peoples, and from the Creator, if my zealous defense of the rights of the Oromo people was done to further my personal interest or to aggrandize my personal fame, rather than to promote the long-term desire of all people of the country to live in freedom, dignity, and equality." Gerba is not the first to deliver a ringing indictment of the injustice of Ethiopia's justice system, but few have done so as eloquently and as fearlessly. His courage to speak, knowing that after the dismissal of his wife from her job, his kids will go hungry without a provider, underscores his commitment to a higher cause. The words of heroes inspire as much greatness when uttered in misfortune as in times of triumph. Nearly half a century ago, addressing his executioners after a death sentence, handed down by the similar kangaroo court under trumped-up charges, Lieutenant Mammo Mazamir, one of the trailblazers of the Oromo emancipation, uttered those often quoted words that were seared into the minds of the generations of Oromo freedom fighters. "Please tell my children that I did not die in vain. My blood is spilled for the just cause of the Oromo people. I am certain that those who falsely convicted me for a crime I did not commit and their rulers will receive the appropriate judgment of the Ethiopian people at this very spot I am being hanged. More importantly, sooner or later, the Oromo people will win their freedom by the struggle of its fighters." The year was 1966, a time of general tumult in Ethiopia before the big storm was to hit, and a period of national renaissance in Oromo history. After a long period of lethargy, the decade saw the awakening of the Oromo nation. In south, the Bale uprising led by the late General Wako Gutu had shaken the foundation of the brutal feudal system, loosening the grip of absentee landlords of the countryside. The Oromo spirit was being rekindled by a cultural revival in the east, thanks to the monumental contributions of the likes of the legendary Oromo singer Ali Birra. Most importantly, the heartland of Oromia was teeming with the first pan-Oromo movement, the Macha and Tulama Association, led by the General Tadesse Birru. 40 years later, faces may have changed, but little else has with the behavior of Ethiopia's rulers. The law punishes political dissent as a crime while celebrating political freedoms in its books. The ideal living in a democratic and free society, a dream of which Mandela was prepared to die and Gerba has resolved to endure under long imprisonment, has still eluded the Oromo and all of its people in Ethiopia. One thing is for sure, Gerba's speech will go down in the annals of Oromo history on par with the famous words of the prisoner's conscience like Haji Robale Tura, Mammo Muzamir, Tadissa Burru, and Haji Adam Saddo. To the extent that being self-respecting Oromo and a lover of liberty are viewed as a crime in Ethiopia, we are all guilty of his capital offense. In a way, we are all Bekele Gerba today. So long as Gerba followed in the footsteps of the pioneers, Mammo Mazamir is not dead. He lives in Bekele Gerba, and the millions who strive to see freedom and injustice prevail over the tyranny in Ethiopia. Here at TV Oromia, we would like to call upon all Oromo people to fight the injustices perpetrated against our heroes and heroines. Above all, we need to support in any way possible the families of those courageous heroes and heroines who sacrificed for our people's rights to exist. Thank you very much for watching TV Oromia Magala Toronto. My name is Bolton Malmer, and I'm signing off.
Sure. Sure. Gerra riddibe. Yororon sigame.
Ananyada garu bitena garfuna da chazi mare bitena garfuna da chazi mare ano bizin tuku ate tu te dona kazi mare ate tu te dona kazi mare Ananyada garu bitena garfuna da chazi mare bitena garfuna da chazi mare ano bizin tuku ate tu te dona kazi mare ate tu te dona kazi mare Gerra rulata, urbenger artulata, man, gerra de mata, gerra rana rakoti, ada koko pamti, ada sabakoti, yero danko tamale, Bonderare tati, Abne kanu male sabako, abne kanu male, bote ware tati. Yo kana si sura kota konga katita mana tina pane. Yo kana si sura kota konga kayaruna matinta pane. Yo kana si sura kota konga katita mana tina pane. Yo kana si sura kota konga kadena matinta pane. Bosona bokiza akagoni jiru bosona kerke no marokiza bada oromia yala bamigira kana kata biru kana beojira Akam kajisani borabiyako nalajisani bakagoni Akam kajisani borabiyako nalajisani bakagoni Jiruze turiro gadi dua gadi kanjirenya mana Ata sabako haraptane made lami baye kamna injinaris kamna doctoro das kamna jabada kapsoma abdi boru kamna oromongo tumaduru bocona bokkiza bakka goni jiru boco nage ano marokiza chiteru meka sabani muti chiteru meka sabani muti chiteru meka badedu meka senabi yako badedu meka chiteru meka sabani muti chiteru meka sabani muti chiteru meka badedu meka senabi yako badedu meka senabi yako badedu meka Temboloate Ako toromo ta tasabiru yoma garitulu Ako toromo wate labatate Amina romata hindi biya pala Hindi diridala Jabata meka Hindi warigala Okanajer si sudah kodok katika mana sinapane Okanajer si sudah kodok akayar tuna matinda bane Okanajer si sudah kodok akacita mana sinapane Okanajer si sudah kodok akayar tuna matinda bane